Questions have been raised even about that party position, that the minority side of parliament decided simply to support the majority side in this. I hosted Honorable Atandi here, and he received quite some flack from the audience because he said he had to toe the party line. And people are saying, no, when it comes to issues that affect Kenyans directly, you should represent the people who elected you, not your party. Don't you agree?
It's a tricky one. When you're an elected member of parliament under a certain political party, it automatically means that once there is a party position, 80% of your vote should go towards the party position. The 20% is left to personal judgment in matters of extreme national importance.
And now, this was not that kind of
let me justify and tell you that it wasn't. Okay, Kenya has been sitting on an egg like a chicken. In that egg, we've had corruption, we've had high debt, and a very expensive constitution. Okay, now we've sat on that egg, the egg has matured, it needs to be fed, it is now a chick. Where were we going to get the money? At the same time, we are the same Kenyans who have been saying we can't borrow more. The fact of the matter is this: anyone who is sober and looked at the situation Kenya is in would have come to the conclusion that we need the taxes that are there. Now, at the same time, it also means that we need to look at government expenditure and stop being the kind of Kenyans who will watch an official being corrupt and then vote for them the next election cycle. That is the problem. So for me, where I sit, are the taxes bad for my pocket? Yes, they are. Are they necessary for my country? Yes, it is. And what is leadership? Leadership is going back to your home and telling your wife, listen, my salary has just been cut. Therefore, you have to help me pay rent, you have to help me pay school fees. I am now going to tax your income, which was previously untouched because of the situation we find ourselves in as a family. Leadership from our MPs should have been that if they wanted 0% tax, they should have at the same time been telling us where they're going to raise these funds or where they're going to cut this budget. Okay. It is pretensions to say you're trying to save Wanjiko by removing 8% tax and not telling Wanjiku that if these bills are not paid, it is Wanjiku who will be in trouble.
Your party leader said the same thing to your members, members of the National Assembly, that they have to pass that. In as far as that is concerned, did you experience any defiance from your members? And if will that attract any kind of reaction from the party?
No, you know, it was actually a very tricky situation. One is that the NASA leader, Raila Odinga, and his deputy Kalonzo Musyoka issued statements and they took positions on the matter. And that was important because, again, it was in the spirit of handshake. And that's the reality. Because, again, after discussing with the president and the issues that were surrounding the reason why they had to raise this, it was then important to clear the debt that is outstanding. Kenya is on a 5 trillion public debt, meaning that actually 57% of the country's GDP does not belong to us, but belongs to others. In essence, it means what is in your house, 57% is not yours. It belongs to other people. And therefore comes a moment where now we must think for the country and take a position. And that is what informed these leaders to take such a position. But secondly, members of parliament had to play some sort of PR because that was necessary. Anyone in parliament would have done what members of parliament did by defying, because those who elect them are watching. And
so
they want to see.
Simply to play to the public gallery, show that you are defying.
It was. I must say, it is unfortunate, but it has to be that way. So there was an issue of balancing what my electorate, those who elected me, saying or watching me do in parliament, because I'm supposed to be protecting their interest. But again, a party has taken a position, and that's what I'm telling you. There is no one, either in ODM or in NASA, in Wiper, will be punished for defying this, because they understand it was very tricky. It had to be found a way.
Just for the show.
Yeah, and I tell you this, it was necessary. It was necessary to do it. It was not possible for.
You just told us that we were played.
Yeah, that's
and it's true. Let me tell you, because I was in parliament. Yeah. To be honest with you, when we passed the budget,
Yeah.
it went to the
Sorry.
When we passed the finance bill, it went to the president. First of all, we passed the budget, the appropriations bill, and it went to the president. President, we had added a number of things, you know, in the appropriations bill, and we said, okay, let's have it. Then when the revenue raising measures came, one of the things we did was to postpone the VAT for 2 years in Parliament. But the Treasury had planned with that money in mind. So what we were supposed to do as members of Parliament was to see, and as the President returned the bill, he said, okay, these are the areas I am proposing to be cut. What we should have seen was debate in the Committee of Supply to see, okay, we don't want to reduce this, but let's reduce this, let's reduce this, let's reduce this, so that Wanjiku can have 0%. And if we were able to do that and convince Kenyans that we have done this, then it's okay. But if Kenyans were watching, during Committee of Supply, you know, members reinstated everything.
So it is the members of the National Assembly who
Yeah,
fail us.
they
So
reinstated.
if at all we are feeling any pain,
Of course,
The
they
blame should go directly
reinstated.
to MPs.
They reinstated everything. They reinstated. Oh, they said, oh, reduce CDF. No, reinstate. Reduce affirmative action fund. I told you here, I do not want that to be reduced. Reinstate. You know, they reduce this and that. They said reinstate. Now, after reinstating all that, when it came to afternoon the finance bill, they now said. The president's memorandum, they said, no, we want 0. First of all, 0 was not even on the table. 0 was not on the table.
And they were aware.
And they are aware that 0 is not on the table. Why is 0 not on the table? 0 is not on the table because if we reject the president's memorandum, we are at 16%. If we pass the president's memorandum, we are at 8%.
With other provisions.
Yes, so 0 was not 0 on that day was not on the table. Nobody had brought an amendment to the president's memorandum and tried to lobby for 2/3 to change it to 0%. So the 0 was song and dance. There was no 0 on the table on that
all
day.
that was just a show.
It was a song and dance.
If you read my article today, okay, I have written about MPs and I've said they have met the grounds of divorce. Number one, what they did that day was fraud. Okay. Number two, they absconded from their marital duties to the Kenyan people. What was their duty? Their duty is what exactly Honorable Wanga has said. Give us options and plans. And the options are two sides. Number one, what are the austerity measures to save us money? Number two, as tax is increasing, tell us how you're going to stimulate business growth. No one is addressing that issue. That means they are factually absconded from duty. Number three, they are having infidelity in our marriage. How? Because they are not loyal to the Kenyan people. If they were loyal to the Kenyan people, what they should have said is, number one, what we are going to do, we are going to reduce our own spending as parliament. You cannot say that you're trying to save Wanjiku from 16% tax to 8% tax, and at the same time you are unwilling as a leader to take a step yourself to shield Wanjiku from the 33 billion parliament costs us. So the whole thing was a fraud. It was a hoax. The Kenyan people were taken for a ride. And the only politician who was genuine is the president when he said, listen, this tax is going nowhere. That was a genuine, whether it was right or wrong or good for Wanjiku or not, that is a debate for later. But the only politician who came out genuine on this one was the president.
Kenyans, we were played.
Final, this is what I'm saying. If now members of parliament were to say no to president, what would have meant is that taxes, VAT would have remained at 16, meaning that would have been very bad for Kenyans. Kenyans would have said, this is bad. If they said no, then it would have meant cost of living is still very high. And the question was very tricky. So if they are seen to be saying no, it means they want the price still to remain at 16%. So yes means we are reducing. So president is saying, say yes, I want to reduce the cost of living. So it was a total confusion and it was very tricky. There was no room to navigate. It was not easy. Yes. But I'm telling you, this was a play, and the reality of the matter, there's nothing else would have been done. Because if they said now, no, now today we'll be paying petrol at 127.
Wow. And even as you make your final comments, a lot can be said about the processes of Parliament and this revision or reservation sent back to the House by the President. The fact that when he does that, it requires 2/3 majority to veto. That automatically gives the President a leeway to actually change a lot of things, and it will be so difficult for Parliament to actually overcome anything he says. Don't you think that that is giving the President power to legislate?
Well, I think it is on very rare occasions that the President returns the memorandum. What is required is consultations, adequate consultations between the executive and Parliament, so that when you still have the simple majority rule to pass the bill, because all the bills are passed by a simple majority, then everybody is adequately accommodated. So I think when the President returns the bill, and this is, I think I've seen it in my last 6 or so years, this is probably the 3rd or 4th time only, yet we have done hundreds of bills. So it is not a common occurrence. And I think it is a safeguard such that if the President returns it and it's still a simple majority required, then we can play ping pong forever, because Parliament will return and the President will return. So the threshold is put so that the issues are debated adequately. What we should have done to Kenyans on that day would have been to go clause by clause on the President's memorandum and debate. Every clause we should have said, oh, this one is good, this one is not too good, this one we should put here, and so that Kenyans understood what the clauses were and understood what we were doing. But this thing of when you realize you don't have the numbers, you start now singing and dancing. Now that is where now Kenyans were played. I voted for the President's memorandum myself. Because as a party we debated all the options. We're already in a hole. We cannot keep on digging ourselves into the hole. We said, with these conditions, bring back our money, let us have this conversation so that with these conditions for the next 1 year, let us see the progress. The finance bill comes every year. So next year, by the same time, September, before the end of September, we will have a new finance bill in terms of revenue-raising measures. So we will be looking at whether the President has really kept his promise as far as prudent management of our finances are concerned. And then at that point, we will now see what to do. It is better to say the truth in that way than to just take a populist position that makes Kenyans dig further. Because on one hand, you say, don't remove free primary education, free secondary education, don't remove this, don't remove that, don't remove roads, don't remove this, but at the same time you say, just leave everything as it were, and we know very well that we
just
have obligations.
Yeah. Okay, finally, Mark.
The wool was definitely pulled over the eyes of Kenyans. Now, we must as a country quickly realize that the reason we are in this hole is we, the citizenry, we, the voters, have decided to continually elect leaders who we are more intelligent than. How do you vote for someone to go represent you and you are smarter than them? It is only in Kenya where most of the time you find the guys demonstrating outside the governor's office are cleverer than the governor. So why did you vote for the governor? It is incumbent upon you to make sure that if you're going to vote for somebody, make sure they have the intelligence, the character, and the capacity to represent you better than you could represent yourself. And that is where the shoe pinches. Because what was our criteria for voting for these people? We voted for them based on their ability to sing and dance and abuse other people. Now, what is their core competence? To sing and dance when we're in crisis. So when the nation of Kenya was in trouble, what did our MPs do? They sang and danced because that is their capacity. You have 349 MPs, half of whom a year later have not even done a maiden speech because they do not even have the command of the issues, because the person you voted for was voted for, not all of them, but most of them were voted for on the capacity to insult him, to insult you, to insult her. So we, the voter, need to realize that choices have consequences.
Wow, indeed, choices do have consequences, and that drama that we were entertained to last Thursday in the National Assembly, probably we deserve it.
Yeah.
Wow.